This week on Tales of Tyria. Well, we've got the regular crew back, and we're going to get some mailbag questions answered.
Wait a minute. Wrong podcast.
We are Tyrians. We are many races, several professions. We practice the arts of combat as well as healing. We have foes, and we fight them without mercy. And it's time for us to claim back what is ours. It's time for us to claim back Tyria from the terror of the Elder Dragons. We can't go on living our lives in fear. We have to fight. We have to make a stand. This is our story.
Sorry, I got a little carried away.
That's all right. So, hello and welcome everyone to episode number 4 of the Chronicles of Tyria podcast, Guild Wars 2 podcast for fans by fans. We want to thank everybody that's come out, watched any of our previous episodes. If you haven't seen them, you can check us out at CotPodcast.com or CotPodcast on YouTube. If you like it, subscribe, tell a friend, and in case you hadn't just catch that, today is going to be a little different on our community section. We're actually going to be doing an interview with Bridger from Tales of Tyria. So welcome, Bridger.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Woo! It's good to have you.
Yeah, so we got Dent is back as well, so we don't have to worry about him off working. So welcome back.
I'm a working girl. Okay.
But
no comments.
Yeah. So, Naveen, did you gonna say something there?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you how was your week? How have you been doing?
We have Bridger on our podcast, so I am doing fantastic.
So that's all you were looking for this week, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost as good as a beta weekend, I have to say.
Yeah, I would compare it. But, I mean, now that they've announced the Asura playable Sylvari,
oh, that's exciting.
It comes out pretty close to having Bridger in our show.
Exactly.
Whoa.
What?
What?
Are you serious?
I am told. Are you serious?
You
didn't
been watching
know?
Twitter today, have you?
No, I've been at work all day.
Yeah, Sylvari and
me.
Yeah, Sylvari and Asura are playable in the beta weekend next week.
Yep.
I think I need to change my requested time off, and I'm just not going to work all weekend. That's what's going to happen.
That works. Yeah. So yeah, here's some news for you, Dint.
I don't
Yeah,
need
right.
Money. I don't need money. I just need Sylvari in my life. That's all I need.
Yeah. So
Because
Sylvari and Asura playable.
Money goes on them.
Exactly. Right. That's
Right.
how that goes.
Yeah, I get the joke. I see what you did.
But for those of you who don't know, Tales of Tyria is a Guild Wars 2 podcast. They're at 618,000 views right now, over 5,000 subscribers. You guys are doing pretty great.
Well, that's the YouTube channel. I mean, that also includes the how-to Guild Wars 2 guides that we've been putting up. So it's not just the podcast. The podcast has something where between 5,000 and 6,000 dedicated fans watching or listening each week.
If only we could have that many.
Hey,
It'll come.
we started with a very small cadre. It takes a while to build up an audience. You gotta. I mean, we're at episode 39 we just released. So, one of the keys there is you got to make sure that you put out content on a regular basis, and you can build an audience that enjoys your stuff. That's all it takes. 3 episodes in, you got so far to go. You got plenty of ways to grow.
Yeah. So I guess we should get started on our little interview here. And we've been informed that the best question to start with is, how did you get involved with podcasting at all, Bridger?
Oh, well, that goes back a while ago. The first sort of podcasting, when that came up, I really enjoyed the sort of talk radio format. I've always kind of enjoyed that. and actually this goes back to like 2002 when I first got high-speed internet, when I was no longer a high-ping bastard with 56K. I was like, what am I going to do with this cable internet? It's so fast. I've heard of this shoutcast, like you can stream stuff, like that is before YouTube, where it's like you can stream audio. I wonder if somebody does any of those shoutcasts that have to do with games. And so I started looking around, and I found a website called the Team Sportscast Network. We call the shots. And what it was is basically, trying to be an ESPN-style sports commentary sports casting for online game tournaments. Specifically, it was Tribes and Return to Castle Wolfenstein at the time, but they were sort of growing, and I saw this, and this is awesome! Oh, man, they do play-by-play like basketball, but they do it for games! This is fantastic! So I got involved with them, and learned a whole lot about doing on-air stuff because everything that they were doing was live. Podcasting is traditionally recorded to tape, as it were. You record it, and then later on you can go back and edit the parts that screw up. But this was all live stuff, so I learned a whole lot about BSing while you waited for the two teams to get set, because the show would ostensibly start 15 minutes before the match, right? Okay, we're going to have Team A and Team B fighting it out in Return to Castle Wolfenstein tonight, so we get on 15 minutes before, and it's, we got such and such Clan A here coming in, and they've been doing really well this season. They're 13-2, and they've got a really strong such and such build, and blah 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 blah. And then by the time you get to 9 o'clock when the match was supposed to start, and only 3 people are in the server, and then the server is broken because it's not got the right config on it. We've got to go to another server, and by the time it's all said and done, it's 9:30 before the whole thing starts. So you got to get really good at just talking and talking and talking without anything to say, but still, having something to talk about. So that's sort of where that started.
Right.
So that was way back in the olden times.
And how back was there? How back was that?
Well, that was 2002.
Oh, well, it's not that bad.
Well, yeah, okay. It was back in the olden times of streaming. So
right.
That was sort of so I joined the Team Sportscast Network, and I sort of led the charge into other games that they hadn't been doing, because I was interested in at the time, I think it was Day of Defeat was what I was casting, the original Day of Defeat for Half-Life 1, the World War II mod. And I really liked that mod, so I started casting that, and I kind of had a weekly Day of Defeat match cast that I would get going. And I also helped cast some Return to Castle Wolfenstein with some of the other guys on there. And then that turned into, let me think. What else did I go from Day of Defeat? I did some Counter-Strike. I did some Team Fortress. And that really jumped into Battlefield 1942. There was an entire summer where I was casting approximately 2 to 3 matches a week of Battlefield 1942, because I was in high school, so I was just out of high school. I was going into college, so I had this entire summer with like nothing to do but a part-time job. So why not cast all the time? So that was insanely fun, and that sort of grew and grew. It started out as just this shoutcasting thing where we get on in this audio stream and we do play-by-play the same way you'd listen to a basketball game on the radio. And then gaming started to get a little bigger, and this, if people remember, there was a PC game tournament called the CPL, the Cyber Athlete Professional League. And that was a sort of big tournament where people would go to these LANs and have these big matches, and it was sort of very exciting because it was the sort of growth of esports at the very beginning. And you couldn't have these important money matches online because people could cheat and you would never be able to tell. But with referees or administrators of the tournament watching over everybody's shoulder, nobody could really get away with cheating or hacking or breaking the game. So that's where the tournament was. It was all at the CPL. And we started going to the main CPL event in Dallas every year and broadcasting live from there. And we had a deal with the CPL where we get our own booth, and we started putting up a webcam so people could like watch us and listen to us. And that was, woo, we're getting fancy. And so then we went on to do Painkiller on the next year, and that was the CPL World Tour, if I remember correctly. That was like 2004. And the CPL World Tour went all over the world with the same sets of sort of traveling players that would go all over, but it would also get the local players in the various locations. So I went to Spain. I went to Barcelona for the second stop. I missed the 10th stop, but I went to the Barcelona stop for TSN. and we broadcast it. And this time is when we started doing video of the game itself, because broadband and access to faster upstream internet was starting to become available. And we had a sponsor. I believe at the time it was NVIDIA that was sponsoring us, so we bought some equipment that would allow us to stream and put some good quality video out there. Now, it wasn't anything to compare to what you can do today with XSplit, but it was still pretty good at the time. And then I went to Barcelona, and that was amazing. And then I went to Sheffield, England, for the CPL tour that year, and that wasn't so. I mean, it was great because it's great to visit England, but Sheffield is kind of like the Pittsburgh of England. It's just this industrial town. It's like not a tourist center. So, but we did get to travel outside of that city. We went to see like the British Royal Armoury, like a museum that showed all kinds of armors and stuff from across the world. It was really cool, armors and weapons, and it was great. So I got to go to Rio de Janeiro. That was an amazing experience. This was all paid for by the sponsors, because the idea is we stream the event, and the sponsors get to get their name on the stream. So if you have, they were hoping, several thousand people watching these matches, then you see, NVIDIA over and over again, and we're going to do the NVIDIA spotlight or whatever. So Rio de Janeiro was amazing, and I got so many stories from that. But this is a Guild Wars 2 podcast, so let's move on. I went to Dallas 2 or 3 times. And then we did the the World Series of Video Games, which was similar, and I got to go to Toronto, and I got to go to Dallas again. But right after that, the whole esports scene kind of collapsed because there wasn't enough interest in spectating remotely as the sponsors wanted there to be. So the money really dried up at that time in the U.S. So there was also some internal problems with our company, and things sort of drifted apart. But around that time, at the end of 2006, Company of Heroes, I got involved in the beta for that, and it was amazing. This is a real-time strategy game from Relic Entertainment, the guys that did Dawn of War, the guys that did Homeworld, and this is a World War II game, which I am a fan of history and the World War II era already. So Day of Defeat is when I got started, and then I did Return to Castle Wolfenstein and Battlefield 1942 and Day of Defeat Source. So I am ready for this World War II RTS. And I fall in love with this thing and decide that, we could do a weekly podcast about this, because I had been doing a weekly show called the Bridger and Harlock Show, where me and my friend Harlock would just BS about games in general. And we had interviews. We had an interview with, what was his name? Something Jenkins.
Jenkins?
It wasn't Jenkins. It was Dr. Jenkins. He was the comparative media analyst for MIT, and he had he'd gone in front of Congress basically saying that video games don't cause violence. We've done plenty of studies and there's no correlation, blah, blah, blah. So we interviewed him about that. That was amazing. We interviewed David Serlin, the fighting game champion, about his Playing to Win book, which was actually articles at the time. So I had done this sort of weekly format before, and now I decided we could do one for this game because this would be awesome. So I started doing Tales of Heroes. And that is sort of the precursor to what Tales of Tyria is. And before Tales of Heroes, I did a very short prototyping of Tales of Legend, which was a similar, but it was all video, all match casting of a single replay from, I don't know if anybody remembers Rise of Legends. Rise of Nations, Rise of Legends was the title. And I was very excited about that game. Unfortunately, it crashed due to lack of support. But anyway, Tales of Heroes comes along. We wind up doing a total of 86 episodes between 2006 and 2011. We did a whole nother season in 2011. Like, we stopped around 2008, and then we came back in 2011 because the game is awesome, and they did a big patch and made everything better again. So 86 video episodes and somewhere around 60 to 62 audio episodes, if I'm not mistaken, over the first year and a half. So that was a really, really fun time, and that sort of got me into the whole podcasting thing. I took a huge break, and then I saw the ArenaNet manifesto. And I said, here's the game I need to get. What is going on? Oh, it has no proclaimed timeline. It's not going to be out for years. So I got excited about it, and then it went to the back of my mind. Right. And then I saw, Guild Wars 2 getting hyped again. It was that video by Alex Ridiculous, the 10 things you'll love about look Guild Wars 2. Is that what it was? Yep. I saw that and then I was like, oh yeah, that was that thing I got really excited for last year when I saw the manifesto.
I think it was 10 reasons why you should be excited for Guild Wars 2.
Yes, exactly. So I got sort of interested in that again, and I said the more I read about, and then I found that giant, massive post that Omlek posted in like 17 places, the one that he somehow updates all the time with all of the information, and I was like, okay, I could do a show on this. I could get really involved in this game because I hadn't been involved in a game since Company of Heroes, and that's 2006. So I started like thinking about it in my head, and I decided when is the right time. I've got to find co-hosts because I tried to get my co-host from Tales of Heroes, who was a really awesome sort of counter to my personality, to come on. I couldn't get him to. He's like, no, I'm into World of Warcraft. It's getting me lots of subscribers on YouTube. And I was like, all right, fine, do your World of Warcraft, StarCraft thing, whatever, jerk. No, I love that. I love Dinsby. He's a great guy.
And then your video way back. I was looking back through the Sound Strategy Network stuff, and I saw when you were looking for co-hosts for Tales of Tyria. I just saw that like yesterday. Like,
yeah, so that was sort of the first foray where I went on to Guild Wars 2 Guru and a couple other sites, and I just I started converting the website, which was previously sort of a home for Tales of Heroes, and converted it over and said, hey, does anybody want to get involved? And actually one of the first people to respond to that was Freelancer. And I got onto Skype with him to, sort of interview him and find out, okay, is this guy, co-host material, and will he be able to, what's his personality like, etc. We talked for 3 hours that first time about, my gaming history, his gaming history, Guild Wars 2, all kinds of stuff. And he fit the role of the counter to my personality, fairly well. I mean, I'm sort of a very excitable, like, whoa, that's amazing, look at this, it's awesome, crazy person, and he's more of an analyst, which is exactly the kind of counter personality that I was looking for. And then, of course, we found a bunch of other possible co-hosts, and the ones that stuck around were Great and Vega and Kai as the main sort of hosts of the show. And that brings us to episode number 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I hope that covers it.
I think that covers it.
I think it does.
That's pretty cool, though, because you got to travel a lot doing that.
Oh yeah, it was an amazing opportunity, and I am so thankful that I was able to do that, because I got to travel around the world and see other countries. I never would able to do that. Never would have been able to go see Rio. Never would be able to go see Spain. Like, those were two of the best ones.
And it shows us, and the listeners that are new to Tales of Tyria also, why you're so comfortable of talking so easily, to everyone. It comes so naturally to you, and now we can kind of get why, with all the big experience that you've had. It must be like really easy for you to just keep a conversation going, right?
Yeah, as soon as you started, the first thing that came into my mind was, holy crap, why are you not on radio?
Yeah, right. Well, I actually I majored in communications partly because of my experience in TSN, which started in 2002, which was the year I graduated high school. So when I went into college, I was thinking, oh, I want to program video games. Let me just take computer science, because I like figuring out puzzles and I'm pretty good with math, and that sounds like it'd be interesting. No, I took a few computer science classes and go, nope, this is not for me. And I switched over to communications major, and they said, yeah, well, communications major is not a real thing, so you actually have to take a minor with that. You're not allowed to graduate with just a communications major. You have to take a minor. So I did a political science minor because I had the most points in that already. So I took like one more class and I qualified for a political science minor. But that whole that whole thing is, I got an internship with the college when I went to Eastern Connecticut State University. HUS was the Yukon one. Now I can't remember it doesn't matter. It was just like a 6-month thing where I was on there playing whatever music I felt like playing and DJing and stuff. And that was kind of fun, but I have no idea how many people were actually listening. Who cares? The crux of it is, I actually used my experience with TSN to write my thesis. It's not a thesis because it's not a doctorate or anything like that. It was just like a paper you had to write for an internship. I actually managed to convince them that my work with TSN qualified as an internship. As the fact that it's a complete hobby that I was just doing on the side. So I managed to write a 10-page paper about the experiences and the things that I learned working with the Team Sportscast Network. We call the shots.
Wow. Well, it shows.
Impressive.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very impressive. I kind of feel, I bow to you, sir.
Yeah, I'm a little humbled over
Can I
here
just
for sure.
can I just have your life for like a? Can I just be you for like a day?
Oh, it's not everything it's cracked up to be.
Well, you must be very proud of all your achievements so far, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a ton of fun, and I love doing the whole on air thing. I love talking and the main thing is that I have a very sort of analytical, like I want to debate about things, but that's not all it's cracked up to be. Because when I'm in like the real world and I like disagree with somebody, like normal people will be like, okay, and just like stop talking at some point. No. Here's where you're wrong and why. And then I get very excited about my presentation, and I get very passionate about trying to convince people, and they always take that as like, whoa, don't get all mad. I'm like, I'm not mad. We're having a debate here. This
I'm
is me
excited.
being persuasive.
Yeah, exactly. So going back to the Guild Wars topic, I mean, how did you first get involved with Guild Wars? It seemed like you played Guild Wars 1, so what drew you to it in the first place?
I did play a little bit of Guild Wars 1, and that was, I didn't even remember the timeline. Did Guild Wars 1 come out before or after World of Warcraft?
After.
It came out after, that's right. I think I played World of Warcraft first because I played in the World of Warcraft beta, and I'm like, oh, this seems pretty cool. Because again, obviously, I had not played a whole lot of MMOs. Actually, no. Let's say I hadn't played any MMOs per se before that. I never played EverQuest or anything like that. So I started playing this World of Warcraft thing. I was like, oh, this seems pretty cool. And I got caught up in the Skinner box of the game. But around level 36, I said, you know what? This is
Boring.
yeah, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. I'm not really engaged at all, and I'm done. So I guess I'm pretty. I sort of has a foggy memory, but I'm pretty sure that is the situation. That is the time in which, around the time that Guild Wars 1 was coming out, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." It's more competitive, which I've always, history and RTSs and FPSs. I'm more of a competitive personality, so this seems pretty cool, and it's got a very different skill system. It seems to be more based, more strategic or tactical, however you want to say it, and maybe I could get into this. I like the PvP aspect of it, and I started playing it, and I think I got up to about level 14, but I don't remember why I stopped playing it. I don't remember if there was another game that I got into at the time. This was, when did it come out? 2004 was when WoW came out. So is that when Guild Wars 1 came out? 2005 was when Guild Wars 1 came out. So that would have been the year that I was also playing, Painkiller and Warcraft 3 and all these other things, which I'd never done a whole lot of MMOs. So I stopped around level 14. I can't remember why. I think it just didn't grip me as much as a lot of other games. And I don't have I can't recall any particular reason for that. I do remember being impressed by the visuals and by the systems. It just wasn't the kind of thing that I was interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. When I first started playing Guild Wars, when I fell off the face of the earth at around level 13 or 12 or something like that, because I don't know, it was like my first MMO, and then I kind of like realized there were all these other MMOs out there, so I kind of got distracted. But I totally understand to just kind of like stop playing for whatever reason.
And did you get into the story mode of Guild Wars? Because World of Warcraft, isn't really in depth like Guild Wars 1 was, as in doesn't have as many like cutscenes and a story background really in depth for your character. Did that attract you at all?
One of the things that I really did like about Guild Wars 1 was the missions that they had, the story missions, where you had this sort of more scripted situation where it was a story that could be interesting, and I really, really thought that was amazing. That was way better than the whole quest text thing in World of Warcraft, and that's one of the things that kept me into it for the time that I was playing it. And I do remember enjoying those thoroughly. It was when I had to go out into the world and do those explorable areas where it was mostly just grinding quest text, that I sort of grew tired and just like, but I want to get back to the rest of the story. And I know there was plenty of story out there, and there was a lot of interesting things happening in there. It just wasn't presented in the same way that it is in Guild Wars 2, for example, with the dynamic event system. And for me, it just wasn't enough to keep me engaged. That's just my preference in the end, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Did you ever go back to Guild Wars later?
Well, when I got all excited about Guild Wars 2, I was like, oh, maybe I should go back and try to play Guild Wars 1 again and sort of get back into the lore and maybe, play some things there. So I started playing again. I was thinking I was playing a warrior mesmer or something. I didn't know anything I was doing, but and I this is like last year. I really wanted to be enjoying it and learn more about the world and stuff, but it just felt like so much sort of just the same thing over and over again. I never even got to I got to the searing and that was it. I didn't even get to the first mission really. I just stopped because I was too excited about Guild Wars 2, and I was like, that's going to be so much better because of everything we've seen, and it's like ruining this. Like, I don't want to play Guild Wars 1. I want to play Guild Wars 2.
Uh-huh. So is it safe to say that you haven't been working on your Hall of Monuments?
Yeah, that's safe to assume. Unfortunately.
I know you'll be pretty active in PvP with Team Legacy, but will you be enjoying the PvP aspects of the game too in Guild Wars 2?
Yeah, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised during the beta weekend events when I was going through the sort of PvE areas, and I would go back to a lower area and actually get knocked down and killed, and I was like, oh, okay, I got to pay attention. Like, it's not as easy as I thought. I mean, they had always warned and said, oh, don't worry, we'll make it challenging when you're scaled down. And in my head, I was like, yeah, sure you will. It's probably just going to be slightly harder than, two-shotting, right? It's going to be three-shotting instead. But it was actually, passably more difficult. And I was very, pleasantly surprised by that. And I also sort of enjoy that each of the zones has its own story to tell, and all the stuff that we've seen from and now I can't remember his name again, and I need to look it up. It's the YouTuber that had those videos about the dynamic events with the bears. It starts with an E, and I always
know you're talking about too, and I can't.
The guy with the very thick accent. It's a European accent, maybe Swedish or Danish, something like that. Anyway, I loved his videos about how if you follow an NPC around, you can really see some story evolving as you're watching there, unfolding like a movie or something. So I really love that aspect of it. And as I elaborate in the most recent Tales of Tyria, I would love to be able to just go through the lands with people that, even if you're not necessarily role-playing, just talk about the game as with the immersive of the world, instead of talking of it like game mechanics. Speak of it as if you're in the game, because that helps, bring out the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Naveen mentioned Team Legacy, so I know Freelancer is a big part in Team Legacy, but how did you get hooked up with...
Uh-oh. We're losing Legwin.
Yep. Am I still here?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
the crux of the question is, how did I join Team Legacy?
Yes.
Well, it's funny story. When I started the podcast, Freelancer was the only member of Team Legacy on the podcast. And then I was on the podcast, Vega was on the podcast, Great was on the podcast, Aku was on the podcast, and then for the lore episode, I wanted to bring on Edwin, I wanted to bring on Malkier, and for all of those, none of them were in Team Legacy the first time they came on the podcast. Now they're all in Team Legacy. And so, I mean, I just remember talking with Freelancer, both on the show and off the show, about, he would mention his guild, offhand here and there, and here's what, they're planning to do, and, their plans, we're going to do world versus world stuff, and we're going to do all organized and stuff like that. And I was looking for a guild at the time, and I was very impressed with Freelancer himself. And so I thought any guild that he's leading is probably going to be a really good experience. So I asked him if I could join. And they allowed me in after I applied through the normal process, and the rest is history. Then after that, I was like, "Hey Vega, you should join us." And great, Aku, you guys come on along. It's going to be good stuff, because I've been now in the meetings for a couple times, and I could say, "Oh, this is going to be a good guild. Come join us," because it'd be great if we could all be there. So then then Edwin, hey Edwin, come on over, and just more and more applications from Tales of Tyria streaming into the Team Legacy.
So So what server are you guys on? I was always curious of that.
We've been on Crystal Desert for the last two beta weekends. I'm not in the high officer corps, because I just sort of joined way late, because Team Legacy's been around since like 2010. I think late 2010 was when Free and a bunch of other people started it. So I'm not in the high officer corps, and they're the ones that decide, those kind of things. But the way that it's going to be is we have the Ascension Alliance, which is Team Legacy, as well as a number of other guilds, including Edge and Resonance and Pain Train and Boon Control and a number of others that have just recently, Lords of the LOTD has also joined us recently. There's been a whole bunch I can't even keep it straight now because we've got like 8 or 9. They've all just joined. But the Ascension Alliance that's joining Team Legacy, we're all going to need to get on the same server come launch. And if we announce like now, oh, we're going to be on Crystal Desert, then we are worried that the people that are, trying to join from the Ascension Alliance won't be able to get in the server. So we'll have people that are in our community, in our guilds, trying to get in, but they will not be able to get in just because of all the followers of Tales of Tyria and Team Legacy in general won't be able to get in. So what we're going to do is basically set up, I think it's a mailing list or something. Just keep tabs on Tales of Tyria and keep tabs on TeamLegacy.net. We're going to set up some way to let the fans of the show and the actual community members know, a day in advance what server we're going to be on, and then that way, the people that are actually dedicated fans of the show will probably wind up showing up with us, and not just people that go, oh, Team Legacy's on that server and that server's going to win, so I better join that one. It's only the people that are paying attention are actually members of our community. I'm pretty sure that's sort of the idea right now. That's the last thing I saw in place, but so don't quote me on that. But I don't think we're going to be on Crystal Desert, unfortunately, even though I feel a lot of server pride for Crystal Desert already from the last beta weekends.
Right, but everything's going to be wiped out, so
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to make sure we don't get in a server that gets pitted against you guys, because I just want to make sure that doesn't happen. I've seen the video, so
The golems are coming.
Oh,
yeah,
Lord.
I think I would pee my pants a little bit.
We're still trying to come up with some good spur of the moment idea that we can do for the next beta weekend. The first one we had Dreaming Bay, the second one we had the Golems, but those were both sort of spur of the moment things that came up at the right time. Somebody suggested if we could figure out how to get how to figure out where another guild is going to be, if we're going to be opposed from another guild, and get everybody to like strip down so that they're just in like their pants and like Braveheart style, like pull out swords and run across in lines and clash in the middle. It would be an epic sort of like, like that would just be awesome. But I don't know if we'll be able to organize something like that.
That would be awesome. You heard it
we'll
here,
see.
folks. If it happens, we heard it first.
Yeah.
That's right. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Beta weekend 3. Can't wait.
No. And actually, this kind of ties in. I don't know. Did you see the most recent interview that I forget? It was Guild Wars 2 Hub had with John Peters.
Maybe.
It's the one where he's talking about how they're going to change all of the skills and the traits, or a lot of them are going to be changed for Beta Weekend 3.
Oh, yeah. I think I remember reading that. Yeah, and basically, I think, is that the one where they also mentioned they were doing a rework of the engineer or something to that effect, and they were asking about the status on that? Yeah, I remember reading about that. So it doesn't surprise me, because the trait system as we know it is only in the game as of, February? Like, it was brand new when the first press beta came out. So they've only had a couple of months to really iterate on this trait system. Before this, the trait system they were talking about is you'd slot traits into weapons instead.
Right.
And I guess armor maybe, I'm not sure. But so this is a brand new system. So I'm not surprised if they have to revamp a lot of stuff, because the first beta weekend, we basically had their first go at traits. Like, this is our first batch. We've just come up with these, and we didn't even have all of them at the time. And beta weekend number 2, we had all 12, but those were changing as well. It's just, okay, we finally got a full number, but now we've got to balance everything. So I'm not surprised at all that they're changing that kind of stuff.
Do you? Is there anything you wanted to see change specifically?
The only thing I don't want to see changed is Ride the Lightning, because I love that freaking ability. It's so cool looking.
Oh yeah, no, that's one of my favorites. So,
but I can't think of anything else off the top of my head except there was one trait that didn't seem to be working, and I don't remember off the top of my head. I put a link in a ladybug on it.
okay.
But there was one trait that didn't seem to be working as it's stated all the time. So yeah, we'll see.
All right. So yeah, we just talked about earlier Asura and Sylvari in Beta Weekend 3. So what do you think? You think they should have waited for launch? I mean, I'm excited to play them. Don't get me wrong, but do you think it would have been better to have more hype for launch, or do you think it was better to release them now?
I think releasing them now does a couple of things. PR-wise, it shows the Guild Wars 2 community, we're confident in our launch date, and we're confident enough to show you the Asura and Sylvari zone. If those were not in the beta, they could have said, with all the bluster they could, muster, essentially, hey, this is just because we want you guys to enjoy it more when it comes out, but there would still be that cadre of people in the Guild Wars 2 community, the naysayers go, oh, well, it's because it's not ready, and the launch is going to be terrible, and that sort of negative mentality, and especially the haters, because all the the people that hate Guild Wars 2 because it's not exactly the thing that they want, and there's people like that in every community, so they're going to jump on that bandwagon and go, see, the game's clearly not ready, it's going to fail, and that negative sort of undercurrent would go to potential people interested, and then they'd learn, oh, the game's probably going to fail because I'm going to hold off and I'm not going to check it out or something like that. So the fact that it's there is, hey, the game is ready to ship, and here, we'll prove it to you. You can now play the Asura and the Sylvari to prove to you that those zones are ready now. And the other thing that it does is it makes sure that they're ready by sending thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people through those zones, because everybody's going to want to try them out. Mm-hmm. So every little bug that may be remaining, 100,000 people going through, somebody's going to find it and ladybug it.
Right.
Yeah.
So overall, I think it's a positive effect.
Yeah, I have to. I was originally of the I think they should wait till launch, but I talked with Naveen about it, and we kind of had the same discussion that, it's better to have it tested now before launch than have to deal with, I mean, Guild Wars 1 was down, a couple of hours over the course of seven years, so, I mean, they're pretty good about keeping everything up and running, so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
The only thing I wanted to know, did you guys see anywhere whether they're going to wipe characters from Beta Weekend Event number 2 or 1?
I didn't, but what I was thinking was they said it's a new client for this one. I think they're saying it's going to be the same client for Beta Weekend 3 as it is for the release. I
think I know what you're talking about, but I think what they meant is the client that you've been using is just going to continue to patch things. It's not that it's basically you're not going to have to re-download all of the art assets that haven't changed. You're just going to have to patch all the changes between Beta Weekend number 2 and Beta Weekend number 3, and then between Beta Weekend number 3 and launch. It's not going to change that client. The main downloader, I think, is what they were talking about. That's my interpretation. I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about that either. I was wondering, in BWE3, are we going to have our characters wiped at all? Well, in my case, I wouldn't really mind because my inventory is so stuffed that I didn't want to even bother selling to merchant. It's going to help a lot. But, I mean, after that, when they switch to game launch, when is our characters going to be wiped, basically? Is it going to be between number 2 and 3 or 3 and launch,
Yeah. So, hang on, I just lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
My bad.
That's okay.
That's all right,
So,
yeah.
I think because they didn't explicitly say your characters won't be wiped, I wonder if that means that they haven't decided yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
my best guess. I sent him a tweet asking, when they did the whole announcement, I sent him a tweet and said, hey, are the characters getting wiped? And they usually tweet back about things like that, but they didn't. I didn't see any tweet about that, and I'm sure more than me was just asking about it. So it's probably that they're not sure yet.
Yeah.
That could happen.
Yeah. Like Naveen said, I would be fine if I lost my character. I mean, I was 3 levels away from Ascalonian, or 2 levels away from Ascalonian Catacombs, so I would have liked to have done that. But if I just play Sylvari and Asura, I'll be happy with that too.
Definitely. Brand new starting zones, brand new... Oh, man, I can't wait to explore Radisum.
Oh,
that looks so cool.
I know.
And I'm excited to see what racial skills, because maybe they'll actually be almost useful, because I don't think most of the ones that are out there really are so far.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
But since you're so excited about Radisum, does that mean that that's your favorite race, the Asura? What's your favorite race and profession to play?
The first thing I'm going to make is a human elementalist. Mm-hmm. I'm probably going to make a Norn warrior, an Asura guardian, and a Sylvari thief. That's like the first couple of groups that I've sort of gotten interested in. Mm-hmm. And
Sylvari
probably just
thief,
stick with
represent.
That's right. Kaith is a badass. So I'm just thinking that's probably what I'll wind up doing first, and we'll branch out from there. Obviously, go back through with other class, because I'm gonna want to have a character for every class, because I'm gonna be casting PvP matches, assuming they get their Gekten gear for spectator mode. So, or even if they don't, we'll try to figure out a way anyway. So I need to know the basic weapons and capabilities of all the classes, and so I'm gonna try to play all of them at least a little bit in structured PvP at the very least. But I'm going to stick with Elementalist to start and try to get that to 80 as soon as possible, and then sort of go back and try out all the others as I'm going.
I noticed you left Char out of there. Are you not a fan of the Char?
I'll make a Char.
Thank you.
Probably make a Char, but I'm not sure. I really do like my during the beta weekend, my wife made a Char, and their personal story seems really cool. The whole your Legion, your warband got destroyed, and there's just you and some jerk left, and like best friend, and that's it. And then the jerk just like blames everything on you, and then you have to tell him, hey, it was your fault, and then you have to overthrow him and mutiny, and it just seemed like such a cool story, especially compared to the Norn one that I tried in beta weekend number 2. It was just lame, but I'm hoping that the later Norn storylines, because I didn't get that far in, and I'm hoping the later Norn storyline really picks up, because they have such cool lore. I was just very disappointed by their personal story.
Right. So, lore speaking, like lore-wise, what's your favorite race? Do you have a preference through the story and all?
I really like the backstory of the Norn with their spirits. The Sylvari are really cool. The Asura sort of speak to me as a sort of skeptic and science geek. That sort of angle there. But I also like the sort of human. The personal story, what with the political machinations between the Seraph and what was the other one, the Shining Blade no, it's the
White Mantle.
No, not the White Mantle, the Seraph, and the one led by the Countess. She wants her own guards to guard the city instead of the Seraph, and there's this whole political thing going on in the background there.
I think the Countess does the Shining Blade.
Is that the Shining Blade?
Yeah, the Shining Blade are the ones that protect the Queen. And the Seraph Guard are... I'm fairly certain. I mean,
no, he's right. It's
wrong.
Shining Blade. No, you're right.
Shining Blade is the Countess's force.
Countess Anise. Yep.
Countess Anise. I remember during the personal story, there's some very sort of intense discussions between Logan and Countess Anise, and then you learn that Countess Anise wants to take over the protection of the city, and I'm not going to spoil the personal story, but there's a lot tied up in her desire to oust the Seraph as being the official guardians of Divinity's Reach, and there's like political machinations in the back and underhanded dealings, and I love that sort of stuff going on in the background. Like you got to figure it out, and it's sort of cool politics stuff in the background. I like that a lot in books and stuff, so I kind of like that. So I guess I answered everything, didn't I? I didn't answer. I just said, this is what I like about all of them.
Yeah, basically.
So I don't know. I think human is what I'm starting with, and I guess that's partly because I want to see where that personal story goes. So I guess human to start with, but everything else there's nothing else that's really, like, I don't want to check them out. They don't seem cool. Like everything else seems cool too.
Mm-hmm. Everything has a little bit of interesting stuff to it.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, for the listeners out there who don't know yet, what are your thoughts on pay to win?
Well, I mean, I've always ranted against pay to win, and it's a fine line, and the whole pay to win thing. There's many different discussions that are talking about very different things. Pay to win doesn't exist in PvP in Guild Wars 2. It just doesn't. And that's the most important place for it not to exist, at least in my mind, because that's where the definition comes from. You have all those free-to-play games where you have competitive gaming where one player is pitted against another, but the guy who paid more automatically has a huge advantage, like 50% better stats. There's no way that unless he makes major mistakes then he will win that game because of the he paid to get better gear. Now, the other thing is, besides just that competitive aspect, if it turns out that the game is balanced around enjoyment only if you spend X dollars per month to speed up your progress. Like, we artificially lengthened everything and then we charge you to get things to make it more convenient so that you can play it at a pace that is enjoyable. That is a huge problem, and I wouldn't necessarily call that pay to win, because it doesn't make any sense. That phrase makes no sense with that issue.
Exactly, but that's Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean, that's what most people don't know about Guild Wars 2. It's you can't really pay to win, and I really want
The
to.
system is a setup so that it could have been that way. For example, if leveling was so slow that you could really only enjoy yourself if you bought those XP boosters or the karma, you never got karma fast enough, so the only way to really enjoy yourself and buy things with karma was to get the karma boosters. You always were undergeared unless you bought karma boosters. If those things were the case, I would be ranting and raving about those things. But that is not the case. Those are all, as Arena has said, convenience items. The whole resurrection orb, the mystic pick, the mystic axe and stuff that you can get from those mystic chests, all of those things just sort of give you little tiny bonuses that don't feel necessary to me. They don't feel necessary at all. I could play the entire game without ever having gotten one, and I would be fine. I mean, I didn't actually spend my gems on stuff for the beta weekend. I converted it to gold so that Crystal Desert would be awesome. It was the entire weekend, and I got a few of those things through drops, and I didn't feel like I was missing out. And that's the most important thing. You cannot feel like, and that's what a lot of people are complaining about. They're theory crafting and going, but I'm going to feel that if other people have something that I want it. Well, that's a very different thing than not enjoying the game as it's set out. If you can't separate those two things, you might just be a greedy bastard.
Oh. But that's a good point, and I'm going to link your rant, because you did a rant, I think it was like 2 episodes ago, about pay to win, and I thought it was the most amazing rant ever.
It's important because most of the arguments on the internet are not arguments where the people are having the same conversation. Most of the arguments are people talking past each other because they're using different definitions. Like, when somebody says pay to win, it means one thing to one person, one thing to another. Yeah. When you have that conversation, you have to nail down a common definition. Exactly what are we talking about? Because then some guy will rant and rave and go, oh no, this is terrible. People will be able to get advantages in world versus world. And somebody else will come along and go, just because other people have an advantage doesn't mean you can't enjoy your game. And you're talking about two completely different things. You're never going to have any common resolution. And this is, we live in the Western, well, most of us live in the Western world with the Western philosophy of the Greeks of the marketplace of ideas. If everybody is allowed to talk about things and you don't silence people and say you can't think or talk about that, then eventually the most true and the most fit sort of concepts and ideas will rise to the surface if debate is allowed to happen. But debate only happens when everybody's reading from the same book and talking about the same exact thing. And most of the time that doesn't happen. That's why I ranted about pay to win. Not because it's not a valid conversation, not to shut down people who disagree with me, but because most of the time they're talking about things that don't mean pay to win. Call it what it is. It's something else. If, like I said before, if the game was artificially lengthened, artificially inconvenienced in order to charge you extra money, we got to figure out a name for that. That's pay to, that's basically a subscription all over again. But that has a very different connotation and a very different thing than pay to win. Clearly, Guild Wars 2 doesn't have pay to win in PvP. It doesn't. So you can't call it that. And when you call it that, other people get confused, and we got definitions all over the place. And it's definition explosion, and it's an anarchy, and you got to get the cleanup crews in here, and because there's definitions dying on the street, and other definitions are on fire, and it's madness. It's pure madness. We don't want to be madness. We want to be in Sparta.
Exactly.
Ah.
But yeah, that was a great rant, and I'll make sure that everyone can listen to it again. Um, we have a last question here before. Is there anything interesting going on with Tales of Tyria or Team Legacy that you want to talk about?
Well, a lot of people have been asking me if we're going to do like a Team Legacy community or a Tales of Tyria community guild. And that's something that we've been talking about behind the scenes and trying to figure out because, and I talked about it a little bit on the show, but basically I don't want to half-ass it. If we're going to do it, I want it to be something that is actually useful for people to join and not just a chat room for fans of the show. So I would like it to actually have events where people can come and get together. And the idea that's sort of rising to the surface right now, that's the work in progress, is that it will be, we're going to have like a Team Legacy / Tales of Tyria guild, community guilds. And the idea is that it will be sort of a casual guild that has events both in-game and out-of-game. Like right now, coming up, Team Legacy is doing a TF2 week where we're asking all of the fans of Guild Wars 2 to come play the free-to-play game Team Fortress 2 just because it's a fun, goofy time. Especially if you're playing it, I'll be there, Freelancer's going to be there, other members from Team Legacy that have been on the show will be there, and other members of Team Legacy that haven't been on the show will be there. They're all great guys, great girls. So it's just going to be a whole fun time. And so we're going to try to continue to do things like that. Killy is the Team Legacy member that's now our community manager. So it's his job to sort of organize these events, but not just him. He's going to be the head organizer, but I ran a Gods and Kings sort of day when Gods and Kings came out, the Civilization expansion. And then we had a Minecraft survival tournament day where we had the community sort of join us and do some streaming Minecraft in sort of a what was it that the Hunger Games style. So we're having these kind of community events, and we're trying to get the out of game ones going because we don't have a game to play yet. But when we get into game, we'll do world versus world events, and we'll do PvP events and dungeon crawls and all kinds of fun stuff. And that's sort of what we're aiming for. Now, in order to do that, we're going to need a lot of help both from Team Legacy members and from Tales of Tyria staff, and also hopefully from community members that are willing to step up and help run these things. So more details of that will come, in the near future. That's sort of what we've been working on behind the scenes.
That's good. So maybe people should definitely follow you on Twitter. And do you have a Facebook page? Yeah, you do, right?
Not specifically for Tales of Tyria. No, I have a Facebook page. I really don't like Facebook. I don't like. I have very little use for it, with the exception of the whole event thing, because everybody that the world is on there. So if I want to organize, like, hey, let's have some real life friends come over for a barbecue or something, I can totally use Facebook for that. But for basically any other purpose, I have no need. I don't do the picture thing. I don't tell people about everything that happens to me every day. So I just don't. I hate Farmville with a passion. I just. None of the things that people normally do on Facebook are things that interest me at all. If I have something to say to people, I'll go and I am my friend Rob, and I'll be like, hey, Rob, check out this link. Or I'll be like, hey, turn to my right and say, hey, wife, check out this link. Though probably not with that wording exactly. But yeah, I don't have a need for it. And so I sort of avoid it like the plague, because the other thing is we've got the Tales of Tyria webpage. We've got the Team Legacy forums. We've got the Tales of Tyria Twitter account, which I was reticent to join anyway. I've got to also take care of the Tales of Tyria Twitch TV page and make sure that's updated all the time. Right. I've also got my Bridger 15 Twitch.tv page. So I've got all these things I've got to keep track of and make sure, and I've got all the feedback emails that I get. I got all of the posts on YouTube that I have to keep track of. Every single forum post that I post, around 10 different forums every week or so, that I have to make sure are updated and I have to respond to. So if there was a Facebook page too, a place that I hate going, it would just be one more thing I don't want to do. We're already so many places, and I've got Twitter. I'm trying to use that more often, at Tales of Tyria. Basically, anytime we're going live, anytime we got changes to the time or anything like that, I try to put it out on the Tales of Tyria Twitter. Any major changes to things will be on the website as well, for upcoming dates and times and things like that. So that's about it. No Facebook. Okay. I went on another tangent again. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. But I mean, people then should follow talesoftyria.com, and they'll know everything that they need to know.
That's right.
Good.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for our little community piece. Actually, we do have one question that we got last week, which we can have Bridger help us answer if he wants. A speculation kind of a question. But one of our members, Zoo Zebra, asked, we've been given the entire map of Tyria. Do you think there might be other Elder Dragons out there, and what else do you think is out there, like other species, and how far do you think ArenaNet plans
Pandas?
on expanding?
No, probably not pandas. I don't think it'll be pandas.
No, I don't think it'll be pandas. I hope it won't be pandas. Although we did get the panda.
Maybe it'll be a race of bat people. Bat men, if you will.
Tyria.
It could be. More Elder Dragons? I don't know. I think by the time we get to Bubbles, we're going to be Elder Dragoned out. And be like, yeah, we've done this before. All right, there were 4 more of you. What do you got to offer? You're down at the bottom of the ocean. You can withstand major pressure. Oh, that's scary. Like, what's your special thing? Primordius was like this massive underground lava machine. You're thinking you're better than that? You got undead dragons. How are we going to kill something undead? I don't know. We did it. So what do you got to offer? Like, I can't imagine they go further than that. They've got to come up with a new story arc after the dragons, I think. If they tried to get more Elder Dragons, that would feel like beating a dead horse, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think... I don't know. I mean, 5 is... I mean, there could be. I mean, obviously it's all speculation, but...
Maybe it's a friendly Elder Dragon somewhere else in the world.
Like Glint.
Yeah.
Or Bar.
He wasn't an Elder Dragon, but yeah, he was originally like evil, like his master, and he's like, no, actually humans are pretty cool. I've been here for like 1,000 years or something, and they're not bad.
Yeah, and I'd like to see how Kunavang fits into all this, because there's another.
Yeah, because that I just thought you sneezed right there.
Kunavang was a dragon from Guild Wars factions that was a very Chinese-inspired type dragon. And so far, any like major dragon that we've seen in Guild Wars 1 or 2 was either an Elder Dragon or a Dragon Champion. Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious
he doesn't fit the mold, is what you're saying.
Right. So I'm wondering if maybe if we go to a Cantha in an expansion, if there's going to be some whole other storyline related to that.
Well, if you look into like Guild Wars 1, when you face Glint, in her lair, there are some eggs there that you can steal, and it starts the bonus thing of the mission. What if those eggs are scattered around Tyria,
Well, actually, now that you mention it, in Eye of the North...
And then Daenerys Targaryen comes to play them.
Exactly.
In Eye of the North, there's actually Glint's challenge, which is you're protecting one of Glint's baby dragons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
From the destroyers.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even think about that till just now. So, yeah.
It might not be Elder Dragons, but we might see other dragons that will aid us or aid, the races of Tyria against the Elder Dragons, maybe.
Certainly. I mean, that's certainly possible. I mean, if you imagine every expansion is probably going to feature a new Elder Dragon as the sort of final boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've already stated Zaitan is the guy you fight in the main game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Primordius is next, or Kralkatorrik, or whoever. It seems to me like that's a lot of 4 expansions worth. If you did a dragon after that last expansion, that might be too much. Or maybe they'll have Bubbles come, jump in, invade somebody else's fun. Like, Kralkatorrik, I'm gonna let you finish, but Bubbles is the best dragon of all time. Like, jump into his too many enemies, like the old Spider-Man 3. Like, yeah, okay, all the Elder Dragons jump in. It's like, okay, we got Zaitan, then you fight Primordius, and then all the Elder Dragons are like, shit, we're gonna take out one at a time. We better freaking gang up on these stupid puny mortals somehow.
Yeah, I mean, again, good question, but we can't give you an answer. So, I mean...
We can only speculate on that.
The speculation machine continues.
Dun dun dun.
But yeah, I think that's it for the community piece here and the interview. So, kind of wrap this up.
Excellent. Well, next we're going to move into the lore, and we can tell you right now that Bridger is going to join us. So we are going to talk about the Norn right after we are done with this interview. So, Bridger, thank you so much for giving us your time and being on our show and explaining to our listeners and your listeners who exactly you are and how you came to be the Bridger that we now know today.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent. So, did you have any questions for Bridger? I mean, you didn't ask him any questions. I forgot about that.
Well, with the notes that we had, I mean, it's basically covered. And then with the answers that went on, other than I had one, and I think you had already answered it.
I may have just kept talking when you wanted to ask. I'm sorry, I do that sometimes. You kind of have to literally
totally
interrupt
fine.
me. Because I've been doing this for so long, I have lungs that go all the way down into my legs. So I don't have to stop for air most of the time.
Okay, well, I mean, I do have a question. With lungs that go down to your knees, what species are you?
Is that a dredge or something?
A new species of Time Lord. They talk too much, you see.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, I do have
The Doctor has 2 hearts. I have giant lungs. There you go.
All right, I do have a question though. If you were to pick a race that we know exists but is not playable, to be playable, which would you pick?
Twi'lek. No, wait. Quaggin. Totally Quaggin.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
You want to Hulk out and attack people?
Yes, definitely. The Quaggin, when you go by him in like Lion's Arch and stuff, they're always like, "Hi, how you doing?" They always sound so childlike whenever you talk to them. It's like I totally see like somebody just be like, "Yep, tiny little kid beating you up."
So we now know that Bridger wants to play a Quaggin, so there you go, Arena. That's the next race you get to release.
Though I think the most likely answer is those bird things that are in Lion's Arch.
Tengu.
Yeah. Because you've got that giant door and the very suspicious, like, yes, we can't let you in right now. We're closing the pass. And it's like, oh, really? So what's behind that door is like a whole city of you guys just waiting to open up in a future expansion, maybe? You know, that just seems very, very likely compared to any of the other possibilities. And it's a very different, sort of race than the ones they have in the game now. So it seems like, and I assume it's fairly well developed in Guild Wars 1 to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they expand on that a lot in factions, all about the different factions of the Tango and stuff like that.
So I call that the most likely race that we may see in expansion, but still the Quaggin, they're so cool.
Actually, interestingly enough, they're the only kind of minor race that didn't get like a minor race blog spotlight. The Tango.
Oh, you know what we need though is the Coden. It has to be the Coden.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, I completely forgot the Coden existed until just now. But, when I play League of Legends, I always play Volibear. And when I kill somebody, I go, I'm a bear! And someone orange, it turns into a bear. So when I'm playing in World vs. World, and they're like, I'm a bear! And they're like, Bridger, stop using that. It's totally ineffective compared to the other elites. I'm like, I don't care. I'm a bear! I'm mauling things. What am I going to do with all these bear arms? So, we need to get the Coden in there, man. Oh, man, they're so cool. They live... I still have this. I think it's the Coden. They live on the giant floating iceberg ship, right?
Yeah.
I have that as my Chrome background. Like when I open a new tab, I see this giant concept art of the floating ship with the sails. Oh man, it's got to be the Codan. I changed my answer.
All right, Codan. You heard it, ArenaNet. Officially, Codan.
I want to be able to scream, I'm a bear, and being totally serious at the same time.
Oh, man.
Bear, like bear.
Watch out for Bridger as a Coden.
As long as ArenaNet gives me like Volibear as the name, like I want to be, I gotta get Volibear.
So that was your question, Din?
Your question. You only get one.
You only get one.
Well, thank you very much once again, and we'll cut this section through our community section, and we'll move on to the lore soon. Was there anything you wanted to mention, Bridger, before we left? Anything about Tales of
Don't
Tyria
ask
or
that
anything?
question. We're going to be here for another half hour.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, you heard it. There you go. We asked, but so yeah, I guess we'll cut it. We'll cut it here.
Yep. So,